Get ready for a story that'll grip your soul. Imagine a quaint mountain town teetering on the edge of chaos. A mother's fear, a fearless voice, and a showdown that could change it all. Will courage win, or will fear take over? Smash that like button to cheer them on. Share this with your friends, hit subscribe for the full saga, and drop a comment. Tell us who you're rooting for. Buckle up. This is one epic tale you won't forget. The sun barely crested the Blue Ridge Mountains, painting Asheville, North Carolina, in a fragile March light. Clara Hayes stood behind the counter of Mountain Brew, her tea shop nestled on a quiet corner. Her hands trembled as she poured chamomile for Mr. Jenkins, his grizzled face creased with worry. Omar's stirring the pot again, he muttered, voice like gravel. Called Trump's crew a disgrace on TV last night. Grace Turner's worse, screaming fight in the streets. Clara's heart lurched. Her son, Daniel, was out there, 23, patrolling the border, his life on the line. Lord, watch over him, she breathed, glancing at the radio humming with static. Asheville felt different today, restless. Townsfolk whispered in doorways, eyes darting. Clara caught a radio snippet. Turner's rhetoric sparks fears of violence. Her mind spun to Daniel's last call, his tired laugh. Ma, it's getting crazy out here. Then Lila burst in, red hair wild, voice sharp. Clara, Karoline Leavitt's coming. She's gonna crush those Democrats today. Clara's chest tightened. Trouble in her peaceful town? She pictured Daniel's dusty jacket hanging by the door. Across the street, Karoline Leavitt stepped from her SUV, the mountain breeze snapping at her coat. Her eyes burned with resolve. They ready for me? She asked her aide, her tone ironclad. Oh, they'll feel it, he replied, smirking. She strode toward the community center, where a crowd swelled, some waving Trump 2025 signs, others muttering curses. Clara watched from her porch, apron clutched, as Karoline faced them. Asheville, she bellowed, voice cutting the air. Omar wants you terrified. Turner wants chaos. Brooks says fight's coming here. I say they're dead wrong. A bottle sword crash, shattering on the pavement. The crowd gasped, heads whipping around. Karoline didn't flinch. That's their plan, she shouted, pointing at the glass. Fear, division, not on my watch. Clara's pulse raced, her mind screaming. Could this woman save Daniel? We fight for you, Karoline vowed, cameras blazing like a storm. Clara whispered, hold on, baby. The mountain stood silent, the tension coiling tighter. The community center in Asheville was a powder keg ready to blow. Sunlight streamed through dusty windows, catching the sweat on Karoline Leavitt's brow as she stood at the podium, her voice steady despite the chaos brewing outside. The room buzzed with reporters, their pens scratching like frantic insects, while a restless crowd pressed against the walls. Locals, some cheering, some glaring with clenched fists. Clara Hayes lingered near the back, her apron swapped for a worn jacket, her heart pounding as she thought of Daniel out there on the border. She'd followed the throng here, desperate for answers, clinging to Karoline's promise. We fight for you. Dean Palmer, a grizzled reporter from the Asheville Citizen-Times, leaned forward, his voice cutting through the din. Ms. Leavitt, Ilhan Omar is calling you a threat to peace. Grace Turner says we're at war. Right here, right now. What's your answer to that? Karoline's eyes flashed, a predator sizing up prey. My answer, she snapped, leaning into the mic. They're reckless. Dangerous. Omar's fear-mongering, Turner's begging for blood, and Owen Brooks. He's out there fanning the flames. It's unacceptable, and they know it. The room erupted, shouts of damn right, clashing with angry boos. Clara flinched, her hands twisting together. She could hear Daniel's voice in her head, soft but strained. Ma, it's bad out here. She scanned the faces, farmers, shopkeepers, folks she'd known for years, now split by rage. Karoline raised a hand, silencing the storm. Listen, she commanded. They don't get it. President Trump's got a mandate. Efficiency, accountability. We've got 8,000 illegals detained since January. Only 461 released. That's facts, not their chaos-sparking lies. Dean scribbled furiously, but another voice broke in. Sharp, Female, furious. What about Doge? You letting Musk's crew raid our treasury? Karoline smirked, unshaken. No one's raiding anything. Doge engineers can't touch the code. They're just reading the books, making sure your tax dollars don't vanish into thin air. The crowd murmured, some nodding, some scowling. Clara whispered to herself, "Protect him, please." Then it happened, bang. The doors slammed open, with splintering as a dozen protesters stormed in, their shouts deafening. Down with Trump. Down with Leavitt. A man in a tattered jacket lunged forward, fist raised, spittle flying. "You're tearing us apart." Karoline didn't budge. "No," she roared, her voice a thunderclap. "You are. Look around. This is what Turner wants. This is what Omar's feeding. Division. Hate." The man froze, fist trembling, as security wrestled him back. Clara gasped, stepping closer, her eyes locked on Karoline. Was this strength, or a spark for worse? "We're here to fix it." Karoline pressed on, her gaze sweeping the room. More ICE funding, more border security. That's the plan. But they'd rather scream than solve. A woman near Clara sobbed, clutching a photo. Her husband, a border agent too. "Will it work?" she choked out. Karoline's eyes softened, just for a moment. "It has to," she said, voice low. "For them. For us." The protesters shoved again. Crash. A chair toppled, chaos swelling. Clara's breath hitched, her mind screaming, "Daniel." Karoline pounded the podium. "Enough. You want war? You'll get peace, on our terms." The room held its breath, teetering on the edge, as the fight spilled into the open. The chaos of the community center faded as Karoline Leavitt slipped out a side door, her breath visible in the cool Asheville air. Her heels clicked against the cobblestone street, the echoes swallowed by the hum of distant traffic and the faint rustle of leaves in the Blue Ridge breeze. She needed a moment, just one, to shake the weight of those shouting voices, the splintered doors, the raw anger still ringing in her ears. She spotted Mountain Brew across the way, its warm glow spilling onto the sidewalk, and pushed through the door. The bell jingled softly, a stark contrast to the storm she'd left behind. Clara Hayes looked up from wiping the counter, her hazel eyes wide with surprise. "You're her," she stammered, clutching a rag. The shop was nearly empty, just a few locals sipping tea, the air thick with the scent of lavender and honey. Karoline offered a tired smile, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Guilty as charged. Mind if I sit?" Clara nodded, gesturing to a wooden stool. "Tea's on me," she said, her voice trembling slightly. She poured a cup, hands unsteady, and slid it across. "After that mess, you need it." Karoline took a sip, the warmth seeping into her bones. "Thanks. It's been a day." Clara hesitated, then blurted, "My boy's out there. Daniel. Border Patrol. I heard you talking about IC funding." Her voice cracked, eyes glistening. "Is he safe? Tell me he's safe." Karoline set the cup down, meeting Clara's gaze. "I can't promise the world," she said softly. "But we're pushing hard. More agents, more support. He's not alone out there." Clara swallowed hard, a tear escaping. "He's all I've got," she whispered. The door creaked open, and Reverend Paul Lane stepped in, his gray hair tousled from the wind, a Bible tucked under his arm. "Heard the ruckus," he said, voice deep and calm. "Thought I'd check on things." He nodded at Karoline. "You're stirring quite the pot, ma'am." She chuckled dryly. "Not my choice, Reverend. They're the ones throwing fuel on the fire. Omar, Turner, Brooks. I'm just trying to put out." Paul sat beside her, his presence steadying the room. "In Gaza?" he pressed, eyes searching. "Folks here care about peace, here and there." Karoline leaned forward, her tone earnest. "Trump wants it rebuilt. Not with our troops, not with your taxes, but with allies who'll step up. I met a woman in D.C., Fatima, lost her home to Hamas bombs. She just wants her kids safe. Sound familiar?" She glanced at Clara, who nodded, wiping her face. "Too familiar," Clara murmured. Paul began to hum, a low, soulful hymn, his voice rising gently. "Peace, Lord, peace," the melody wrapped around them, a fragile thread in the tension. Clara's hands stopped shaking. "You mean it?" she asked, voice raw. "You'll fight for them, for my Daniel?" Karoline reached across, squeezing her hand. "With everything I've got." The bell jingled again. Lila, breathless, bursting in. "They're coming. Protesters, heading this way." Clara gasped, her cup clattering. Karoline stood, eyes narrowing. "Let him come," she said, steel returning to her voice. "This isn't over." Paul kept humming, a quiet anchor, as the distant shouts grew louder. The sun dipped below the Blue Ridge Mountains, painting Asheville in a deep, bruised purple as the French Broad River gleamed under the twilight. Karoline Leavitt stood on a makeshift stage by the riverbank, her figure stark against the fading light, a lone warrior facing a gathering storm. Floodlights blazed, casting harsh shadows across her face, while cameras whirred, their lenses glinting like hungry eyes. The crowd, hundreds deep, pressed tight along the water's edge, a volatile brew of hope and fury. Signs bobbed in the air, Trump 2025 in bold red, peace now in shaky black, while voices clashed, raw and restless. Clara Hayes stood near the front, her jacket pulled tight, Lila whispering urgently beside her. "They're close, Clara." I heard him yelling from the tea shop, pure rage. The distant shouts from Mountain Brew had grown into a rolling thunder, sweeping through the streets like a tidal wave. Karoline gripped the microphone, her voice sharp and unyielding, slicing through the electric hum. "Asheville, you've seen their tricks. Omar's venom, Turner's threats, Brooks stirring the hornet's nest. They think you'll buckle." The crowd erupted, jagged, fierce, some thrusting fists high, others roaring approval with weathered faces etched in determination. Holly Reed shoved her way forward, her dark hair tangled from the wind, her eyes alight with a fire that could burn the town down. "You're the poison, Leavitt," she screamed, her voice cracking with fury. "You're ripping families apart, trampling the weak for your precious power." Karoline's jaw tightened, her gaze locking on Holly like a hawk. "Wrong. We're rebuilding what they shattered. Look at this." She thrust an executive order into the air, her voice booming. "Signed today. No men and women's sports. Fairness starts right here, right now." The crowd split, cheers thundering against jeers, a cacophony shaking the night. Dean Palmer elbowed through, his gray hair slick with sweat, his notebook flapping wildly. "What about Doge, Karoline? You trimming fat or aligning Musk's pockets?" She flashed a steely grin, leaning into the mic, "We're gutting waste. $12 million funneled to biased hacks like Politico. History. That's your cash, Asheville. Not some DC elite's toy." The air crackled. Half the crowd roared in triumph, half hissed in disgust, tension coiling tighter with every breath. Clara's hands shook, her eyes darting across the faces. Farmers in worn boots, mothers clutching kids, neighbors she'd shared coffee with, now fractured by this wildfire. "Daniel needs her to win," she murmured to Lila, her voice barely audible. "He's out there, counting on this." Holly stepped closer, her protesters surging behind her, 40 strong, maybe more, their signs slashing the air like blades. "Stop the hate." Karoline's voice rose, a clarion call. "We're rounding up illegals. 8,000 detained since January. More every damn day. But we need Congress. Fund IC. Secure our borders. Save our people." A man in a faded denim jacket shouted, his voice breaking with grief. "My brother died out there, shot on patrol. Where's his justice?" The pain in his words sliced through the noise, raw and unfiltered. Holly pounced, her fingers stabbing the air. "See that? You don't give a damn. You're all promises and lies." The crowd wavered, fury bubbling over. As her group charged the stage, their yells a war cry bouncing off the river's dark surface. The stage shuddered as Holly Reed's protesters barreled forward, fists clenched, signs swinging like battering rams, their shouts a wall of sound that drowned the river's murmur. Karoline stood firm, her boots planted, mic gripped like a weapon, her voice roaring over the onslaught. This is their vision. Chaos, Fear. Look at what they're doing. A bottle arced through the air, crash, exploding near her feet, glass spraying across the wood in a glittering burst. The crowd screamed, some ducking low, others shoving back, panic rippling through the masses like a shockwave. Clara tore free from Lila's grip, her voice piercing the bedlam. "Stop it. Don't tear us apart." She stumbled toward the stage, tears streaking her face, her cry a mother's desperate howl. "My son, Daniel, he's out there fighting. Let her save him." Holly spun, her face contorted with scorn. "He's their puppet, lady. They'll grind him to dust." But Clara didn't waver, her body trembling, her words spilling out in a flood. "He's my heart, my whole damn world. She's a shot, our shot." The protesters faltered, some dropping their signs, others stepping back, caught in the raw force of her anguish. Security wrestled the stragglers, boots thudding against the dirt, as Karoline's voice surged, fierce yet steady. "She's damn right. We're here for Daniel, for every son, every family in this town. They crave war. I'm bringing peace. Our peace." The crowd hushed, breathless, clinging to her every syllable. Dawn broke over Asheville, the Blue Ridge Mountains glowing gold under a tender March sun. The French Broad River flowed steady and calm, its ripples catching the light, a stark contrast to the chaos of the night before. Clara Hayes stood outside Mountain Brew, her apron crisp, her hands steady for the first time in days. The air smelled of fresh dew and hope, the town waking slow and soft after the storm. She unlocked the door, her heart lighter, when her phone buzzed, Daniel's name flashing on the screen. "Ma!" His voice crackled, warm and alive. "They're sending more guys, better gear. I'm okay, you hear me?" Clara's knees buckled, a sob breaking free. "Oh, baby, thank God." Across town, Karoline Leavitt sat in the back of her SUV, the engine idling as she stared out at the waking streets. Her coat was rumpled, her eyes tired but bright. "We did it," her aide said, grinning. "You shut him down last night." She nodded, a faint smile tugging her lips. "Not just me. Clara." She turned it. Her voice, she trailed off, picturing that desperate cry cutting through the mob. The radio hummed low, a news anchor's voice breaking in. "Leavitt's stand last night quelled the unrest in Asheville." She leaned back, exhaling. One battle down. The tea shop door jingled, and Reverend Paul Lane stepped in, his Bible tucked tight, his face serene. "Morning, Clara," he said, voice deep and warm. "Heard from your boy?" She beamed, wiping her eyes. "Just now. He's safe. They're helping him." Paul chuckled, settling in the counter. "That Leavitt woman, she's got fire. But you're the heart of it." Clara blushed, pouring his tea. "I just want him back alive." Paul sipped, then looked up serious. "And Gaza?" "She mean what she said. Peace, not war." Clara paused, nodding slow. "She does. I felt it when she grabbed my hand." Outside, Karoline's SUV rolled past, her window cracked, the mountain air brushing her face. She caught sight of Mountain Brew, Clara and Paul framed in the glow, and her chest tightened. "They're why we fight," she murmured, her voice soft but firm. Her aide glanced over. "Back to D.C. now?" She shook her head. "Not yet. One more stop. Church. Gotta thank someone bigger." The car turned, heading up the hill where a steeple pierced the sky. Inside, Paul set his cup down, his voice rising in a quiet hymn. "Peace, Lord, peace for us all," Clara joined, her whisper shaky but strong, their voices weaving a fragile harmony. The bell jingled, Lila, bursting in, eyes wide. "Clara, they're saying it's over." The protesters left. "She won." Clara laughed, a sound of pure relief, as Paul kept singing, his prayer lifting higher. Karoline's car paused at the church, her head bowing briefly, then pulled away, Asheville shrinking in her mirror, a town unbroken, a promise kept. "Hey folks, thanks for riding this wild journey with us. You stuck through every shout, every tear, and we're so grateful. Smash that like button if you felt the heart of Asheville. Share this with your crew to spread the fire. Drop a comment. Tell us what hit you hardest, and hit subscribe for more stories that grab your soul. See you next time. Stay bold, stay true.